Hello everyone and welcome to the Middle Ages channel. When we think of a medieval princess, what comes to mind? Beautiful gowns, magnificent castles, and a life of leisure, right? Well, today, we're going to pull back the velvet curtain and see what life was really like for a princess in the Middle Ages. Was it all fairy tales and happily ever afters? Let's find out. From the moment a princess was born, her life was not her own. She wasn't just a child. She was a political asset, a piece on the great chessboard of European diplomacy. Her birth would be a grand event, but the celebrations were less about welcoming a new baby and more about securing the future of the dynasty. A princess's primary value was in her potential for a strategic marriage. She was the key to forging alliances, ending wars, and expanding territories. Her education began almost as soon as she could walk and talk. Forget playing with dolls just for fun. A princess's upbringing was a rigorous training program. She would be taught by private tutors, often clergymen, who would instruct her in religion, reading, and writing, usually in Latin and her native tongue. But her curriculum was much broader than that. She needed to learn the languages of potential suitors, so French, German, or Spanish might be on her daily schedule. She would also learn to manage a large household because one day she would be the mistress of her own castle or even a queen consort, overseeing hundreds of servants, managing budgets, and organizing grand feasts. And of course, there were the feminine arts. A princess had to be an accomplished musician, able to play instruments like the lute or the harp. She needed to be a graceful dancer, a skilled embroiderer, and a master of etiquette. Every gesture, every word, every glance was scrutinized. She was expected to be a paragon of virtue, piety, and grace, always representing her family's honor and power. There was very little room for personal expression or youthful rebellion. A single misstep could tarnish her reputation and jeopardize a crucial marriage alliance. Speaking of marriage, a princess rarely had a say in who she would marry. Negotiations could begin when she was just a toddler. Portraits would be exchanged, dowries negotiated, and treaties drafted, all centered around her union. Often, she wouldn't meet her future husband until just before the wedding, and he might be decades older than her, a man she had nothing in common with. The romantic ideal of marrying for love was virtually non-existent for royalty. Her duty was to her family and her kingdom, and that duty was sealed at the altar. Once married, a princess's life would change dramatically. She would travel to a foreign land, often leaving her family and everything she knew behind forever. She would have a new language to master, new customs to learn, and a new court full of strangers to navigate. The pressure was immense. She was expected to win the affection of her new people and, most importantly, to produce an heir, preferably a male one. Her entire standing and security in her new home often depended on her ability to give her husband a son. If she failed, she could be set aside, ignored, or worse. The life of a queen consort was a precarious one, filled with political intrigue and the constant need to prove her worth. But it wasn't all just duty and pressure. A princess did experience moments of luxury that were unimaginable to the common person. She wore clothes made of the finest silks, velvets, and brocades, often adorned with jewels and gold thread. Her diet was rich and varied, featuring rare spices, sugars, and meats that were luxuries even for the lower nobility. She would attend lavish tournaments, hunts, and feasts, all designed to display the wealth and power of her court. These events were the highlights of courtly life, a dazzling spectacle of pageantry and entertainment. Furthermore, some princesses managed to wield significant influence. A clever and charismatic queen could become her husband's most trusted advisor. She might act as a regent for her young son if the king died, effectively ruling the kingdom. Women like Eleanor of Aquitaine or Isabella of Castile were not just passive pawns. They were powerful rulers in their own right, shaping the course of history. They used their education, intelligence, and diplomatic skills to navigate the treacherous world of medieval politics and leave a lasting legacy. They sponsored artists and poets, founded universities, and led their people with strength and wisdom. So, what was the daily reality? It was a life of stark contrasts. A princess might wake in a cold, drafty castle chamber but be dressed by ladies-in-waiting in a gown worth more than a peasant's entire lifetime earnings. She might spend her morning in pious prayer, her afternoon studying statecraft, and her evening as the center of attention at a grand ball. She was trapped in a gilded cage, surrounded by luxury, but constrained by duty. She was both a symbol of power and a political commodity, a person whose personal desires were almost always secondary to the needs of the state. The fairy tales tend to gloss over the loneliness, the fear, and the immense pressure that these young women faced. Imagine being sent away at 15 to marry a man you've never met, in a country where you don't speak the language, with the weight of 2 kingdoms resting on your shoulders. It was a life that required incredible resilience, intelligence, and fortitude. The life of a medieval princess was far more complex and challenging than the simple stories we're often told. It was a world of power, politics, and pageantry, but also one of sacrifice, duty, and personal struggle. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. What part of a princess's life surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the Middle Ages channel for more deep dives into this fascinating era. We'll see you in the next one.